Hey everyone, I know it's been a bit since I last posted. Got it put in for, I've been doing some interviews. I actually got a job, so there will be no break in employment for me once I leave the military. What I wanted to talk to you guys about today, it's been something that happened over the past, week and a half, 2 weeks, with the mass shootings that occurred in El Paso and Dayton. And how nobody wants to address the real problems with it. Everybody looked at this thing as they were quick to jump on the political soapbox and really just dance all over these 30 or so fresh graves to place the blame. I don't agree with this at all. All right, so a little background in it. El Paso shooter, a white identitarian, believed that, we were being invaded. Went into a Walmart in El Paso, which is just across the border from Juarez, Mexico, which was actually 45 minutes from my full-on hometown of Las Cruces, and shot up the place and killed 20-some people, injured, dozens of others. I think the tally was about 40 people injured in that shooting, and he was taken into custody alive, and it put a lot of focus into President Trump wanting to, hey, if you're somebody that commits a hate crime, you're going to be executed quick. You're not going to be a burden of the state. We're not going to let you live to be a martyr, for 20 years for that goal. Now onto the Dayton shooter. Dayton shooter was a progressive, left-leaning. This was actually, I think, in the recent history, it was the deadliest attack by somebody of the progressive mindset. And this comes in the wake of the attempted firebombing of the Tacoma Ice Center, or detention center, that killed the individual that tried firebombing the place. But everyone was so quick to jump onto their soapbox on top of these fresh graves to say, oh, it's the right and their obsession with guns, and we have to regulate firearms. And then there's the shooting on the left. The left doesn't want to acknowledge Dayton. They want to acknowledge El Paso, and the right, the guys on Fox News and all that other stuff. They're the ones that are quick to judge. It's like, well, the Dayton shooter was a progressive and an active member of the socialist groups, and we could consider him an Antifa style, an Antifa terrorist. And nobody's wanting to acknowledge it on the left, and it's true on both sides. But it's not addressing the real problems, the problems that everybody wants to know. And that is, what the fuck was so damaged with these guys? And that ultimately it's getting lost in the translation, and lost. The message is being lost. That this is what actual people want. We want to know what went wrong with these guys. Why did they feel that it was necessary for them to go on a mass shooting spree and killing people? Nobody wants to ask that question. They only want to know, was he a Republican? Was he a Democrat? And it's not going to be Republican or Democrat. It's going to be, are they on the left extreme, right extreme? When you look at the Republicans and you look at the Democrats, ideally you'd want to find them as being left center, right center, kind of types and whatnot. And that's where you get your mainstay of people, is right in the left of center, right of center kind of thing. But we've gotten a political and media system that is so absolutely oblivious to the damage that they do. And all they want to do is keep ripping things apart. Why? Because it gets clicks. Why? Because it gets ratings when you say outrageous shit like this. You know, they don't want to take the blame for it. You know, these politicians and the media, they're going after each other on it. It's like, oh, this is white supremacist hate, and they're killing more people. And then you got the people on the right that are saying, you know, these leftists are dangerous. They've now escalated into the mass shooting range when they were, you know, when everyone was telling them that Antifa and the progressive movement is becoming a violent tool. They are right. But it's not what people want to know. What people want to know is, what the hell happened with these guys? Why did they feel so damaged? And if you took a look at both of these guys, you couldn't tell them apart. If you were at a glance, these guys would look like doppelgangers. And in my belief it's the dystopia that is being fueled by not only the political system, but the media system that is generating these type of people. An argument that can be made is the breakdown of the modern family. One of the things that are similar between these two guys is that they both grew up without a father present in the household. I'm going to speak to you guys from a little bit of a personal side on this. I grew up without a dad. My dad and mom, they got divorced when I was about 9 years old, and there's a lot of stuff that goes in that went into the reasoning why my parents split up. Had a lot to do with, you know, a toxic environment, and my mom ultimately was saying, you know, we can't deal with the drugs and the lifestyle. She left, and she took the kids with her, and you know, I had a very rough upbringing at that point in time. At 8, I was happy, very lighthearted, very intelligent and engaging. Around 9, 10 years old, I developed quite a bit of a spiteful streak. I'll admit, I was violent. I wasn't very nice to my siblings. You know, I hung out with some of the wrong people, you know, morally objectionable people. You know, even at that young of an age, you know, you strive to find an influence, you know, a male influence that would be for at least a little boy, that you can bond with. Males tend to have a very, very strong just personal bond with other men. We desire to see those appropriate social interactions. And so it led me down a path to hanging out with guys that, you know, they were my age, a little bit older, and they had some objectionable kind of morals and whatnot. And it took a good long time for me to at least gain my own confidence to be able to decide where my moral compass pointed. But you know, it wasn't the same for my sisters or my brother. They had a very rough upbringing. This was just growing up in a single mother household. You know, I didn't have that, and this is kind of one of those things I strive for with my children, is that I'm going to always be a constant emotional and inspirational presence in the household, so that my kids grow up adjusted and that they don't grow up violent without a proper male role model. But these young men, they grew up without those role models, so they took to what they could. You know, they took to the internet at large. They took to, you know, social interactions with people with questionable morals, with questionable compasses that, you know, don't take responsibility for them, and it puts them to the extreme just to get that kind of attention. You know, so the breakdown of the modern family, I feel, is going to be one of the reasons why we have been having so many of these mass shooters, and it's the same type of person. So then it brings up the question, is like, well, how do we fix this? And what it is like, we have to be re-engaging these young men. We can't allow them to fall through the cracks. The Big Brothers programs, that was actually one of the things that that kind of helped correct my my path, was the Big Brother program. And while I was in middle school, they had high schoolers that were part of the Christian societies, or that were, outstanding social students and whatnot. And they would bring them over to the middle school, and they would have them interact with the younger students that may have some difficulties. Came from divorced families. They were poor. I had both. I had the double helix right there. The double negative going. My mom, she worked minimum wage job. Grew up in a poor neighborhood in Podunk, Indiana. And I didn't, like I said, she was raising us on her own, so I had to try and share the attention of my one parent in the household with 3 fellow siblings, and that could get rough, especially when you're the oldest. It's the one that your parents don't tend to need to have to look after as much. The younger siblings are the ones that are more needy. But the Big Brothers program kind of helped me out a lot. I was able to learn how to learn those the appropriate social interactions for young men. And like I said, it helped develop the type of person that I was. And then from that, I was hanging out with other friends of mine that had, fathers present in the household, and seeing how adjusted they were. So I was able to learn, through the interactions of my friends and their fathers, and how those appropriate social interactions were supposed to be. I was very fortunate. But sometimes these guys are so introverted and cast away, and they feel that they have to put more barriers up between them and society, and it allows them to crawl into these really, really dark, extreme places, either both on the left and on the right. So what is it? What is it going to be that we're going to have to look into to doing? It's the same thing with when you start looking at underprivileged communities, the Black and Hispanic communities, where you're seeing a lot more of these violent crimes, gang-related, drug-related, anything like that. And how are we going to re-engage young men, as a whole? We have to try and bring back the modern family. And I know it's going to piss off feminists out there. It's going to piss off progressives out there. It's like, I can be a strong, independent woman, or, let's kill this baby, or I can do this on my own, or the welfare system. It's really, it really puts people into a bad spot right off the bat. If you look at how children, come to be in the United States, more often than not, especially in like poor communities, you're starting to see rates of 60 to 70% of children born out of wedlock. Of those, most of those single parents don't go out and get married, take the responsibility, and the child grows up, at a disadvantage already. You want to see what the well-adjusted children are out there. And you don't even have to look at the race kind of thing. You don't, because I see plenty of successful young Hispanic men, plenty of successful young Black men, and the common factor that you're seeing with a lot of them is that their parents are together, their parents are married. These kids are learning the appropriate moral compass, even in households that are even more strict and disciplined, where they still whoop the kids and stuff like that. These boys are still becoming very well adjusted. They're not going out and shooting up all these places. But when you start looking in like the underprivileged neighborhoods, where you're starting to see like 70% single parent rates, and these kids are growing up in the poor community, they're not learning the right thing. They're not getting the attention from their moms, necessarily not the attention that they need from just one parent, where they can learn that those moral codes, where stealing and hurting people is not a good way to be able to earn your place in life. They're not learning that from their adult male role models. It's the common factor that's coming up with a lot of these young men, especially, like I said, in those underprivileged neighborhoods where you have, those higher single mother rates, and it's a lot of just little boys growing up without dad in the house. So we have to try and figure out a way to correct this problem. Bring back the modern family. Make it an incentive for people to get married and stay with the parents of each other. And also, if you know that, I'm sorry, ladies, if this is going to piss you off, but if you know the guy's a scumbag, don't sleep with him. I don't care if he looks good, drives a good car and stuff like that. He's not going to stay with you. There are some people out there that are that scummy. They'll hit it, quit it, and get it the fuck out. You got to change something with your standards. And guys, you're just as much to blame in that aspect. The partying culture and stuff like that. I had to learn quick when I was 27 years old, that my priorities had to change in order to see myself as a father. I had my first child when I was 27, and a lot had to change with me personally to get out of hey, I can't go to the bars tonight. I got things to do. You gotta grow up. You gotta grow up fast. And the thing is that it's kids that are having kids in these poor neighborhoods. Now, that's not to say that any of these that either of these two individuals that conducted the mass shootings grew up underprivileged, and probably quite to the contrary. I know the El Paso shooter came from Plano, which is a very, very nice community in Dallas, and the Dayton shooter, his ideology speaks to a very bourgeois mindset that he may not have had such a rough life, but something has to be done. We have to reengage young men in society as a whole, and allow them to learn that the appropriate social interactions don't include shooting up a bunch of people and trying to get your name put out there in infamy. But the discussion will never be for me, well, we need to ban guns. I am a fervent believer in the Second Amendment. See it in my shirt right here, second. I believe in the right for people to bear arms. You can't blame the tool for the actions of the operator. But I don't think these gun bans are going to be as effective as people are going to claim them to be, and I hope that each one of them gets shut down. The Second Amendment's the insurance policy for all of our other rights. When we no longer have the right to defend that First Amendment, they're going to take the First Amendment, take the Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, those kinds of things. And then when you start losing your freedoms, that's it. But I don't know, I ranted a little bit and raved, and yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign off of here. But leave a like and a comment, or if you dislike this, thumbs down. Well, fuck you. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching.